Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are, guys. Smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. Really smash that like button, guys. I've got some news coming for you guys. So smash that like button, and hit the subscribe button and share the video as always, guys. You guys are really good and support the channel. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It means a lot. Guys, so Mr. Gennady Golovkin was speaking to ESPN Mike Coppinger, and he said that Saul Canelo Alvarez has been ducking the trilogy. He don't want that smoke. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this article for you. Golovkin said, "That is a question you should ask Canelo Alvarez. After the rematch, when everyone wanted to see the third fight, he did everything he could to avoid it. He even took his promoter to court." Wow. Who knows? So then Abel Sanchez obviously had things to say. Who's Golovkin's ex-trainer. He said, "The motivating part is that he's fighting Canelo. Make sure Murata doesn't make you look bad and people start doubting you. There's no way he'll doubt himself. I would not like to see it get to a point where people are saying he shouldn't fight Alvarez. If he's aggressive with Murata and doesn't take too many shots, maybe you'll all say he's ready for Canelo now. But if he gets hit a lot and gets it to round 9 or 10, the fact a guy can carry him for that long just put doubts in your mind about the matchup in September." So what's this? What's this here? "It has been frustrating. All I will say is this inactivity has not been my fault," said Golovkin. "I made a commitment to Ryota Murata and his team that he would be the next fight after my mandatory defense against Zarameta. I honored that promise. This fight has had numerous postponements that were unavoidable. I chose to look forward and cannot wait to return to the ring. It's almost here. Okay, so is there any more? That is a question that will be answered on the night of the fight, says Golovkin. This is a question was being asked if Golovkin would move up to 168 pounds. How will the jump to 160? How will the jump 168 pounds impact Golovkin? To that, Golovkin replied, "That is a question that will be answered on the night of the fight. Even 2 pounds can affect a fighter in a good or bad way." And then it says here, "No matter how the matchup is viewed from a competitive standpoint, it's sure to be a financial bonanza for both fighters. The first 2 fights generated more than 1 million pay-per-view buys apiece. In addition, more than $50 million in total gate receipts in Las Vegas, both fights combined." Golovkin said, "I think it is the biggest fight that is feasible. There could be others, but the boxing prevents them from being made. The reason I think this is a big fight because we have already given the fans 2 fantastic fights. A lot of people around the world watch them. The fans know what to expect, and I think they want to see more of what we gave them the first 2 times." So then they're talking about bad blood. The passage apparently has done little to cool off the bad blood. Alvarez told reporters last month in San Diego, "He talks a lot of beep, you know what? He talks a lot of things, but we're going to see. First is first. I need to win May 7th. It is not personal for me," says Golovkin. "I moved on from those fights before I returned home. I do not dwell in the past. If fighting me again is personal to him, why did he take him 4 years to decide to do it? Numerous reporters have asked me about his recent comments, and it sounds to me like he is facing his own insecurities. Maybe he wants people to forget the first two fights because they are painful for him. I do not know why, because they were both great fights. Now Murata and Bivol each has his own opportunity to become a superstar. I've been in boxing long enough to know you can't plan too far ahead in advance. This is the DAZN executive vice president of global platform, Joe Marowski. Marowski says that you can't plan too far ahead. Besides, Golovkin in form is a mystery. 40 years of age, following a 60-month ring absence. It says here, if he goes out and does what Golovkin does best, it's not a hard fight for him. But don't get me wrong, this is Sanchez speaking. Murata will give him a fight. He's in his home country. He can give a show, but Golovkin is a step above even at this stage. But he will get hit because Murata is not going to lay down. Very good fighter, Murata, but not at Golovkin's level. So let's talk a little bit about what's been said here. Golovkin's not very happy that Canelo Alvarez is taking him 4 years to fight him again. And the question must be asked. There was a lot of demand for the trilogy. Canelo Alvarez ended up winning a fight which, some people thought Golovkin won, both fights. There was a lot of ring observers at the time that had Golovkin winning both fights. And there was definitely a demand for a trilogy. But why did Canelo Alvarez not take the trilogy? Why did Canelo Alvarez decide to go another route when there was more demand for the trilogy? Is it because he knew that Golovkin fights are tough and they were always going to be close, and he thought, now that I've got a win, I can move on with my career? But to be honest with you, the second fight was really close as well. The first fight was close, but I thought Golovkin won that. The second fight was close, and you could probably say Canelo won that. So Canelo really should have fought Golovkin a long time ago. And, why he didn't, only he knows that. Did he want to go and pursue other fights? Did he not want to be held up? But then the question asks is, why is he fighting him now? Because there's no need for this fight now, really. If you look at it, Canelo's got nothing to gain from this fight. The only guy that's got to gain is Golovkin, because if Golovkin ends up beating Canelo, people will say, yeah, well, look, Golovkin was always better. He got robbed the first 2 times, and now, the better man has finally got the win. So Canelo's got nothing to gain here. He's already got a win over Golovkin. There's no need for him to fight. There's no need for him to fight Golovkin for the 3rd time. But it does beg the question, why is he fighting him 4 years after the second fight? There's no real need for it. It's not a fight that a lot of fans want to see now for Canelo. So again, it does beg the question that why is this fight happening? It's kind of a fight which a lot of the fans are actually, and as great as Golovkin's been over the years, and he's, Golovkin for me is a superstar, great fighter, and a guy that's, given us a lot of great nights. But a lot of people want to see Golovkin. There's a lot of people out there that are not a fan of Golovkin. They actually want to see him lose because they want to see Alvarez fight Beterbiev. And but it does beg the question that maybe this trilogy should have happened a couple of years ago. And why it didn't, only Canelo can answer that, because Canelo was the one that was in control of the situation. Golovkin isn't in control. Canelo does what he wants to do. But Golovkin, basically Golovkin saying that maybe, Canelo is looking to age him out. There's been a lot of people saying that maybe the reason why Canelo didn't want to fight him straight after is because he knew the fight was going to be close. Canelo had time on his side. He was young, so he tried to age Golovkin out. And now Golovkin's 40. He now will end up stopping Golovkin and knocking him out. And people will say, look, Canelo was always the better fighter. I think it's unfair, because I think that Canelo will probably... I think Canelo will beat Golovkin quite convincingly now. But I don't think Canelo would have beaten Golovkin convincingly if he had fought him straight after. I just think that Golovkin and Canelo... to me, Golovkin and Canelo would have always been a close fight, because I think they're kind of made for each other. And I don't think Canelo was able to separate himself from Golovkin in his prime. When we saw Canelo fight Golovkin, I don't think Canelo would have ever been able to dominate Golovkin, because Golovkin's just too good a fighter. So and like I said, I think he kind of was. Golovkin has like the bigger dimensions. He's taller, and he was naturally the bigger guy at the time. Now Canelo's filled out. But I would have really loved to see them fight, earlier. I think now it's a fight which I think there's other fights out there that people would rather Canelo fight than fight a Golovkin fight. And I think even though I think Golovkin is owed this fight because of the fact that how close the first two fights were, and some people had Golovkin winning both, I think it's a fight that a lot of fans don't really want to see. It's a fight that, fans are kind of like, we don't really want to see this fight again. We're not really interested. So yeah, look, I feel for Golovkin. I do think, I've said this before, that I think Golovkin's legacy is tainted because of those two fights. If that first fight wasn't a draw and Golovkin got the win, maybe Golovkin legacy would look far greater. Look, Golovkin's going to go into the Hall of Fame, but you have to say that when you look at his resume, there isn't a lot of names on his resume. Although he was a top fighter when he was blowing everyone away, his resume is quite weak when you compare it to Canelo. Canelo's resume is quite stellar in comparison. So yeah, I feel like Golovkin probably feels a little bit bitter. Probably feels that, maybe Canelo hurt his legacy, and, everything surrounding around it. The bad, some of the judging, the fact that Canelo failed a test in Golovkin's eye, that didn't sit well with Golovkin. So Golovkin probably is a little bit bitter. He probably thinks that things didn't favor him. But they were never going to, because Canelo was the cash cow. He was the star. He was the guy that had the financial mileage. He was the guy that had the time on his side. A lot of people, look, I will say this though, you got to give Canelo credit for fighting Golovkin twice. A lot of people thought Golovkin would clean Canelo out, and he didn't do that. I remember before the fight that a lot of people thought the reason why Canelo wasn't avoiding Golovkin is because Canelo knew Golovkin would knock him out. And for me, a lot of people, I know the talk at the time is that Golovkin was actually, I think Golovkin might even been the bookie's favorite. People thought that Golovkin would clean Canelo out, and Canelo was seen as a guy that, was going to get beat by Golovkin. But, Canelo went in there and Canelo fought a great fight both times, and he probably surprised a lot of people. And people started saying, actually Canelo is a great fighter, because, he's gone in there with Golovkin. And a lot of people thought Golovkin would stop him. The first time when Canelo was going to fight Golovkin, people thought that Canelo would get stopped. Honestly, people thought that Golovkin would stop him, but I think what we realized that, Canelo had a granite chin and he was too tough, and you weren't stopping Canelo Alvarez. You weren't going to stop him. And I think that people realized that, Canelo was a great fighter. The fact that he was able to take so much punishment from Golovkin, the fact that he was able to take so many shots of such a heavy-handed, bigger man of Golovkin, I think a lot of people's respect grew for Canelo. But one thing I will say is that I'm not, look, this trilogy is going to happen. I am looking forward to how Golovkin looks against Murata, because like I said, if Golovkin doesn't look great, this trilogy is going to be very hard to sell, because people are going to say, well, he just struggled with Murata, he looked old, or Golovkin, if he looks shot, or he looks like Father Time has caught with him, this fight is going to be very difficult to sell. Very difficult to sell, in the sense that a lot of people will be complaining out. Now, look, DAZN will know that people will tune in. The problem is they're going to put that on pay-per-view. And are people going to be willing to... is the pay-per-view number... Look, if Golovkin goes in there and bashes up Murata and looks $1 million, then all of a sudden that... And Canelo goes in there and maybe struggles with Bivol and gets a job done, all of a sudden this fight in September becomes massive. If Golovkin goes in there, struggles with Murata, then I think people are going to say, well, this is a shot Golovkin and there's no chance he has any chance against Canelo. So I think DAZN are probably hoping that Golovkin goes in there and puts in a devastating performance against Murata, because that's only going to increase the pay-per-view buys for this fight. That's only going to increase the profile, the hype of this fight, in my opinion. But if Golovkin doesn't look good, so I think all eyes of DAZN and people that want to see this fight on Saturday night, because people want to see how Golovkin looks and how Golovkin does in this fight. Because if Golovkin doesn't do well, there are going to be question marks about should this fight really be happening. And as Abel pointed out, that, you know, he doesn't want it to get to the stage where people are saying that Golovkin shouldn't even fight Alvarez, or he shouldn't even be in the ring with Alvarez because he's so far past it. And that would be a shame, because like I said, I think this trilogy should have been sorted out a year after, you know, not 3 years down the road. And I think Canelo should have tried to close the chapter a year after. But now it's got to a situation where, you know, GGG might just be way past his best. And if Canelo does end up stopping, it might be a bit of a Brook Khan situation. Who knows? Where, you know, it was a fight that people wanted, even though these two have fought twice. If the way Brook stopped Khan, it was like Brook's, even though Brook won, the credit kind of got taken away from Brook because Khan was so shot and so past his best. You know, who knows? Golovkin might be in that same stage at this point. So, yeah, time will tell. Let's see. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.